Welcome back to the Athlete Hackers Podcast. My name is Chris Schrade.
And I am Mark Spellman. Thank you for joining us. Today, it is my great pleasure and honor to introduce somebody that I've known for almost a decade now, has over 20 years of experience in the field, is the founder, president, director, I don't know whatever other titles we can give you, for the High Performance Basketball Symposium. It's my honor, my pleasure to introduce Coach Charles Stephenson. I am going to ask you about the nickname Rock at some point during this discussion, but Charles, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks, Coach. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you guys. Thank you, Chris and Mark. Really a pleasure and honor to be here. Thank you.
First and foremost, for those that don't know Charles, first and foremost, if you don't know Charles or don't know him, shame on you guys. Secondly, Charles, give us a little rundown. Give us the highlights of the career. Highlights. We'll probably get into the lowlights. Hopefully, more highlights than lowlights. But give, for those that have not or do not know of you, give us the background as to how we got you here today.
Okay, I'll give you the short version. I did grow up in a small town in Virginia, and was an athlete. So, and then started lifting weights as I was a baseball player and a catcher, and I was a little, just a small frame. So, found the value of strength training and how it made me a better athlete. So I said, this is pretty cool, and went to college and started out at James Madison University. Was studying economics, but I was always reading fitness books, training books, trying to be a better athlete. And then I'm like, and I really want to play baseball too. So ended up transferring out of James Madison into William and Mary, and played a little baseball there, and ended up probably trying too hard, overdoing things and injuring my shoulder. So had shoulder surgery at the University of Virginia, met the medical doctors there, ran into a man named John Gamble, who was the head strength coach at the time, and just said to myself, I want to be a strength coach. So started studying physical education at William and Mary, went to grad school at the University of Virginia, worked there full time after grad school, was fortunate to have an opportunity there. From there, thought I wanted to be a head strength coach. So I was chasing a title. I took a head strength coach, or was it director of strength and conditioning of Olympic sports at Auburn University down in Auburn, Alabama. And that's how I got spun into basketball. I always thought I'd be football, and because that's where I cut my teeth, and even tried to go back to football, a couple occasions, but just kind of had that title of head strength coach, was in charge of basketball. That's what it was. Took the job seriously. Next thing you know, I'm at NC State as the director of Olympic sports and basketball strength coach. And then from there, the journey took me to University of Utah. And that's where I've been the last 9 years. And now the journey will take me, I don't know where.
I think just from listening to the story, I think a lot of people in our profession have very similar paths. I went to a small school, was a swimmer, was started as a business major, realized I didn't want to sit at a desk or a traditional office all day. Had the fortunate opportunities to do a couple internships with Dan Riley and Mark Hasanovich in the NFL. And then I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a head strength coach. I want to, was at Villanova for 2 years. The director position came up at Fairfield, was there and I remember the first day I was at the symposium, I was sitting with Coach Roos, who was at VCU at the time. And I was like, yeah, I oversee 20 teams and 400 athletes. He's like, he just started laughing. He started laughing at me. And I don't know whether, it might've been, hopefully it was sympathy laughs, but, he's like, Mark, I'm in charge of 15 guys. So like, I really can't wrap my head around how you do your job. And I think for a lot of coaches, especially young coaches right now, and I'm sure you've heard this, they're at their first job, whether it's a GA, an internship, or they're actually an assistant trying to become a head, and they have like 2 or 3 teams, and they're like overwhelmed by like 3 teams. And I'm like, you've got 3 teams. You've got a team every season. You've got a fall, a winter, and a spring. I mean, obviously everybody's in a different cycle during that school year, but at the same time, if you're not dealing with football or maybe crew, at most you might have 30 players on the team, whether it's baseball or softball or soccer. You might have 30, but you're not going to have more than 30. And whether you have to travel or not. So I find it kind of interesting. When younger strength coaches right now are saying that they don't know, like they've got too much on their plate. Now, that being said, the new age strength coaches also are dealing with the wonderful world of sports science, and they're dealing with readiness and monitoring systems, GPS systems, heart rate monitor, questionnaires, where probably when you and I first started, we would just ask the athletes how they were feeling. Have that nice open and honest dialogue with them before or after their workout session. We both started probably similar time, 2000, 90s, in that ballpark. Where do you see the profession going? And do you think it's a good or bad way that the profession is going now?
Well, it's a challenging question. It can be looked at from a lot of angles, and I think I'm going to start with the name, image, and likeness angle, and that's going to change college athletics, I believe, in some ways, where there's going to be, I don't know how it's going to go, but I kind of can see where there's a few players on a team that will get a lot of attention, and the rest of them won't. And there'll be players on the team that'll benefit greatly financially from this attention. And that's, how schools deal with that. I mean, there's some administrators that fear that, if I'm PNC Bank, why am I putting my logo up in the gym or in the football stadium when I can put it on the player? And then, if that's the case, do I get more benefit from the star player? I'm sorry, guys.
Oh, no worries. My dog's probably going to bark at some point.
So I'll just go there because I don't know what that's going to do.
Secondly, that sounds like the end of college sports.
It could be, Chris. In some ways, I mean, do the Power Fives go ahead and band together and figure it out in a different model? I don't know. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, I have no clue. Like if I'm a small school in Connecticut and I'm an athlete and I'm the best one, and you got UConn up the street, that one of their players is going to draw a lot of attention. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I'm sure there's a lot of people.
Just for a little groundwork, you guys are specifically referring to the question that's been going around about paying college athletes, actually allowing them to receive endorsements from corporations to play. The idea that these athletes are bringing in so much money into the college, why shouldn't they get a piece of it more than just a free ride?
Correct.
So our one of our first 2 podcasts this season was on the need for NCAA reform. And part of that was brought to light with what happened at the women's basketball tournament and their lack of facilities, and how Allie Kirshner brought that to light for everybody to see. I strongly believe, and I think this is going to happen a lot sooner than later. I think there's going to be the haves and the have-nots as far as college athletics goes, and I think the Power Five is going to break out to the Super League with what they tried to do with Europe's soccer. So I think you're going to have 4 16-team conferences. How they break it up geographically, north, south, east, west. It's probably the easiest way to do it. But you're going to have 16 teams in each league. You're going to have 2 divisions in each league. And then, obviously it's going to be spearheaded through football. But the football coaches are going to look to the basketball coaches going, hey, we're going over here. We don't have to play by these rules anymore. If we want to play our players, we can. And then it's going to be very interesting how it gets solved. But I definitely think it's headed that way. I've thought that way for probably the last 10 years. Because, as you know, with major Division I football, they don't play for an NCAA title. They play for the football championship trophy, whatever, FBS, FSC, I think it's FBS, where they have the four team playoffs. And then I think it just makes sense if you do 4 16-team divisions, and then you have the 2 top teams in each division play each other, and that gets you down to 8, and then 8 to 4, 4 to 2, 2 to 1. Boom, problem solved. Should I send that to Mark Emmert?
Yeah, that sounds good. So I start with that because that's the uncertainty. What has happened in some cases, and especially in mine, is the coaches have gained a lot of power, and with that power, we have benefited from the profession as far as salaries, as far as being in a niche or a space of revenue sport like football or basketball. And so it's tough because the salaries have been elevated, and some of them, you don't want to hurt the profession because you love it so much, and it's been a grind, and for most of us it isn't lucrative. But some of the salaries could be getting a little disproportionate, but that's not because of the strength coach's fault, and that's college athletics' fault. That's probably, you could say that about coaches and their assistants, right? So the strength coach just falls in there now. But under that system, the coach has a lot of power, and when change happens, you're part of that change. And that's happened twice in my career, and I'm going through it right now. I think there's a couple great situations out there, or good situations, where I even saw it this year. There's been a couple of advertisements for athletic directors that are strength coaches. The expectation is you train a team, but also you lead a staff, and you hire a director of Olympic sports, and you're part of a performance team, and you carry your end of the strength and conditioning space. So some of that is going on, which is really encouraging at times, right? And then and then I had a friend tell me he was dealing with a coaching change, and he was part of a major conference, and he said his AD went up to him day one and said, "You're safe, because this entire conference," and this is a Power 5 conference, is trying to take away this power from the coaches. And when I say power, I mean the authority to bring in a strength coach and fire them at will too, right? So and they bring in great strength coaches. So if you're I'm a part of that. I was part of that here. I was brought in by a coach, and so with very little screening from anyone who had any background in science. No screening, I should say. It was more of the coach just seeing something that he thought I could lead his team.
Well, and I think for the young coaches that are listening to this, one, it's about relationships. This profession will always be about relationships, whether whether it's good or bad or indifferent, you're going to have relationships with the people that you work with, for, and who you work for. I mean, we all work for the student athletes that we work with. But at the end of the day, if our head coach and our administrators aren't happy with what's being done, we're not going to be in that position for that long. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, especially at the Power Five conferences, if you just got hired as a head coach, you probably have a 5 or a 6 year contract because they want you to get your first recruiting class through. But, you know, at year 3, if you still haven't like made it to the conference finals or made it to the NCAA tournament or haven't checked off some of the boxes, that's where the donors come into play, because they're not giving money to the athletic department because the athletic sport or whatever sport that they're interested in isn't being successful. I mean, once again, for these institutions of higher learning to say at the end of the day, it's not about the almighty dollar. Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, let's be adults about this, and let's have an open and honest dialogue that it is a job. I mean, and it is a business where billions of dollars are being made every year on the back of these student athletes. So
Yes.
and I'll give you a great one, Charles. So I interviewed for a job at a major perennial top 20 basketball program about 2 weeks ago, and I ranted on this already, so I'm not going to rant again. But so I did the phone interview, everything, whatever. At the end, one of the gentlemen on the calls, hey, we'll let you know over the weekend or Monday on the next step in the process. 3 hours later, that school announced their new director of sports performance. And I have 2 weeks, I've yet to hear back from that school on the status of my application.
Well, I know the school you're talking about because a friend of mine, the same thing happened.
Okay. Sorry to hear that.
No, they interviewed him, and later that day, the announcement was made.
Well, and I think this is what I'm saying. Whether it's federal law or a requirement by the NCAA or whoever, if you have to post a job, I get it. You have to do that to make sure that you're being compliant. But at the end of the day, if you are going to interview somebody over the phone or bring them on campus or whatever, if you don't even talk to them, make sure you get back to all of the applicants for that position and let them know the status of their application, one way or the other. I don't care about anything else. Just like at least be professional enough to follow through, because like applying for jobs, not the easiest thing to do. No. Especially if you're going through it the whole way, where you're not only doing it online and doing all that stuff, but following through and getting in touch with the coach or the athletic director or whoever is the hiring party, which, you know, if you're not doing that, good luck on getting a job. But it's one of those things.
Going back to this idea of, it's all right, college athletes possibly getting more of a share of the revenue they bring in. You guys brought up an interesting point that it may start to kind of almost the money may flow just into a couple of athletes rather than the whole team. And that's an interesting take, and it makes a lot of sense. But I'm sitting here thinking about it, you know, in my own perspective. When I think of the NBA, I think of individual players, and the fans that are going there go to see individual players. But don't you think that college sports, just in general, even if they do have standout athletes, a lot of the people that are coming to the games are there for their team. It's almost more tribal when you're a fan of a team in college. You know, versus professional sports when you may be going just to see one or two athletes. So do you guys think that the team aspect is what's really generating the money? And if these corporations get involved and only paying one or two or three athletes on the team, do you think that takes the revenue out that college is generating? Do you really think that it's really just a handful of players, that these huge fans of North Carolina Tar Heels or Baylor basketball, are they really coming to see just one or two players, or are they coming to see the team?
It's a great question, Chris. We're just gonna have to see how it plays out. One thing I'll I do agree with you that the tribal aspect of I'm here for the university and institution and the team more so than the individual player. Because the other thing that I'm gonna throw at there is, let's say, I'm at Utah, which is it's an isolated market. It's Salt Lake City, but it's a state out west, and there's a lot of people out east that are even, east of the Mississippi, have no clue who any of the players are. But yet they may know who a player is at USC or UCLA. And in the West, there'll be a bigger market for a good player possibly to go to USC or UCLA, because they would stand to benefit financially from their name and image and likeness. It's just a bigger market. It's a bigger state. It's a more profile school. So I think it's going to affect recruiting. So I know that doesn't. I just wanted to throw that out there, and it this is going to be interesting how it plays out. I do see what you're saying, though, is it's hard for me now, Chris, to put myself in the fans' shoes. So I love your perspective, because I have not been a fan for so long, especially of a team, right? You've always, yeah.
I would hope you were cheering for your team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'm appealing to that economics major that this is more of an economics thing, that the money's generated from the tribalism, from the team, rather than one player. And so if that money's coming in, it almost like it's got to be distributed, maybe not equally, but certainly not completely concentrated in 1, 2, 3 players like it is in the NBA or in other professional sports. I agree. I mean, they're generating all this money. Something's got to be done, but it's scary to think that what you guys mentioned, that it could trickle just into a small number of players. I think that would be the end of college sports.
I think when you look at institutions that have 20 and 30 varsity programs, I think it will be the end of that. I mean, I think right now the minimum requirement, and Charles, you might be able to help me out on this one. I think the minimum requirement that a school needs to have to be Division I eligible is 16. It might be less, but I think that's in the ballpark. So, you look at that, and if we only need 16 teams, why are we going to have 30?
Right.
And can we afford it? I mean, you look what, just this past year with COVID, I mean, Stanford announced that they were getting rid of, I believe, 12 programs. I mean, they've since come back and have reinstated all 12 programs. But that was, I mean, for anybody to think that it was not a financial situation and a financial decision, I mean, they're crazy. So, I mean, and you're not talking like good programs. You're talking about programs that win national championships.
Yeah.
And basically feed the U.S. Olympic system in that given sport. So, I mean, I did see that Stanford is looking to hire a new wrestling coach.
Wow.
So, but it's one of their programs that they brought back. So I think when they announced that that the program was over, I'm pretty sure that individual hopefully got a job somewhere else.
Right.
So.
Right. I tell you what, I also see is sports is still growing. There's so much more streaming of sports. There's so many opportunities to view it, and it's all sports. It's soccer, it's baseball, it's softball, it's I'm sure I've left out lacrosse. I've left out numerous sports, and that there is a market for it in some ways that wasn't there 10 years ago. I mean, I got a little email this morning about watch SEC baseball on ESPN, right? So uh, that wasn't there many years ago, at least 15 years ago. So those things have changed, and so yeah, and that's got to be some revenue stream for some sports that you fear that, like you said, Mark, that they may have to make them club sports. You know, if I don't know where it's going to go. But we'll see. I will throw this at you. I saw when some of this stuff I was reading, and I wish I could remember her name, but they were saying some athletes that really stand to benefit. And one of them was a volleyball player at Florida. And one of the reasons is her social media account. She has so many followers. I mean, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands, right? And so if that's a marketing opportunity for somebody or something, right? So there's, whether it's a clothing line, whether it's you know, who knows what it is. But this kind of person here, you know, but all the players on the team can't get those deals. So that's where it's just going to get interesting, you know?
Well, and also who's gonna oversee that? The compliance department?
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Yeah. So this
know?
girl stands to make six figures, is what this was the projected earnings of this female athlete and I'm probably misquoting it. So I wish it was a while ago I read it, but it was like, oh, well, why is that? So you go look, and it's her social media following.
And good, but here's the other thing, good for her.
Yes.
I mean, why hold her back? I mean, obviously maybe somebody else in the Florida athletic department is going to be upset about it, but I mean, she's put in the time and effort, and she has that social media presence where she's been putting out content, you know, but at the same time, now the compliance department better check on her content that she's putting out if she's getting paid for it. So
yeah, I don't know how it's going. It's crazy.
it's going
Well,
to
they're
be,
going to hire, universities going to hire creative marketing people who deal with like, hey, you come to this school, we have these great services that'll help you benefit from your name, image, and likeness. That's what's happening too.
it's not going to be look at our new 40,000 square foot facility anymore.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
They should do that for their own staff. How can you help me with my name, image, and likeness?
Yeah, get my name out there, please.
Yeah.
So this idea of colleges cutting back in the number of sports they have, I mean, is this because if we move to this new format, corporate sponsors are going to have more influence on where the money goes, and they're going to want it to go to those one or two major sports? And just for my own ignorance, I mean, are sports like basketball and football footing the bill for the other sports in the universities
right now? Yes.
Yes.
I mean, and Charles, I there was a story a long time ago up at Oregon. I believe an econ professor brought up Nike's overseas practices, their business practices overseas, and in class, like in an open forum, and was talking about Phil Knight and how they were upset with his business practices overseas. And I believe the president got involved and was like, you realize you're in the Phil Knight School of Business, right? That's the name on the building. Like he has donated over 50, I mean, I might be wrong on this, but he's donated over $50 million, not only to this athletic department, but to this whole academic institution. So you might want to just back off on what you're saying about the person who's probably built your office.
Right.
Just, food for thought. I think it's going to get to that point. Back in the day, I mean, Bear Bryant, when he was at, I believe when he was at Texas A&M with the Junction Boys. I mean, if you've ever read that book, there's a part in it where during camp, planes were flying over and they were just dropping bags of money. literally. Preseason, he took them away from school and planes were flying over and bags of money were thrown out the plane for the guys to have money. So, I mean, I don't think it's going to get back to that level, but I mean, it's going to be interesting. You know, good luck NCAA with trying to figure that one out. So
yeah, it's going to require flexibility, a lot of decisions made based on as the data comes in. So
definitely.
Good luck.
Basketball. You want to talk basketball, Mark?
Sure. What do you want to talk about?
Well, you know, Coach, we had a podcast with Bill Parisi from Parisi Speed School, and you know, he's his latest thing that he's been talking about is fascia training. And on the podcast, he basically said that basketball, in and of itself, is probably the best fascia training. Period. Full stop. You know, if you want to do fascia training, go play basketball. Give us your insights on basketball training. What do you think about fascia training, basketball as fascia training in and of itself? And what are the best things in terms of strength and conditioning that basketball players should be doing right now?
Wow.
I'm not touching this one at all.
Well, the program needs to be, you know, thought out and well-rounded. There has to be all aspects of training that need to be considered. It's such a sport of all kinds of qualities, as Bill pointed out, that of this deceleration, acceleration, movement patterns, and just athleticism, right? The coordination to actually dribble and run, you know, which is nothing for these guys, but it's something that it's a coordinated effort for sure. And to do it under conditions of great effort. So always there's this huge fitness component that needs to be addressed. So it's a wonderful sport, and I love that and then people we're learning about it more, and that it really is comprehensive in that way. So it's hard to discuss, you know, maybe specific exercises or anything, or maybe it's more concepts, you know, and it depends on the level of the athlete for sure. But the concepts will definitely be, you know, do something for the fascial training for sure. Even you know, whether that's foam rolling or some of the stuff that Todd Wright just, you know, reintroduced to us, this vertical core, just movements and all. Basically what it is, it's just movement patterns in all dimensions of movement, and make sure you move, so when your body's put in those positions, they can actually absorb forces in those positions and move through them. Okay, so that's that component.
When did Todd first, and for those that don't know, Todd Wright is the president of performance, I believe, with the LA Clippers.
Right.
Before that, he was with the Philadelphia 76ers, and before that, he was at the University of Texas. Todd recently presented for the High Performance Basketball Symposium, which Charles oversees. For those that are interested in the High Performance Basketball Symposium and the videos, you can go to Play Academy, where they are located, and I believe they are up for purchase if you want to check those out. But you know, I know, Todd, this isn't something new for Coach Wright to present. I believe he referenced 2008 as the first time he discussed fascia training and multiplanar training for basketball. If I'm wrong on the date, you can correct me, obviously, but I just wanted to make sure everybody, if they were looking for this, had the way to get to it. I'm sorry for interrupting, Charles. But I think one of the big things and a lot of concepts that are being put out there right now. One of the major things is that as a coach, we need to meet the athletes where they're at. And I think you've probably seen this, especially when you're overseeing one or two programs. It's probably very likely if I came into your facility at Utah, there might be 15 different programs going on at the same time based on what that athlete needs. Now, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a day that we got to get some work in, and everybody's doing the same thing. But for the most part, I would assume that you would meet the athletes, see where they're deficient, see where their strengths are, and then address them accordingly so they could perform at the highest level possible when called upon.
Yeah, I think that's just a great saying. Meet athletes where they're at. So all of them are going to be at different stages, and the way it's going now, Chris, is we do a lot of assessments, and even if we get an 18-year-old kid who's has a limited background, most of their one thing that we do see is no extended period of training. There's been a little bit of training here, a little bit of training there, but nothing like we're gonna take them through this extended period, this planned programming.
Talking about freshmen that are coming into your.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yep. And any athlete at any level. I mean, you can have a workout here and there, but did you actually go through a training plan? So that's kind of important too, where there's certain objectives through each phase of the plan. But as Mark says, these assessments, it reveals these individual characteristics, and we don't need to get too deep, especially if it's a basic athlete. But the whole plan may look the same. Like everyone might be doing rear foot elevated squats or RDLs, and these jumps, like maybe some contrast training. But there may be a player that's doing an extra set of jumps or more reps with the exercise. So you're kind of trying to fit their needs. This is where that player is at. He needs, we need a little more power in the left leg, or we need a little more strength in the left leg. And it's so simple in how we have been able to you just add extra reps to that left leg. If it's strength, and if it's power, you add an extra set. And it's to what we've seen with some force plate data that's very sensitive, is it actually corrects it. Just something as simple as that. So that's the more advanced stuff. So that's kind of the stuff that you're trying to do. But the biggest thing to me at the end of the day is you're trying to make them just more, the words are robust, resilient, just fit, strong as you can, and that doesn't mean power a lot of weight. It could mean balance strength. It could mean a lot of things. So that's because basketball is so multidimensional. It's not just it's not all about this high levels of strength. It's not wrestling or offensive linemen, right? And there's some training techniques from those two athletes I just mentioned that you can use, but you don't take them to that level of strength and that's needed. A heavyweight wrestler or lineman.
The freshmen that you mentioned coming in, the ones that don't have a whole level of proficiency with, I think what you're saying is kind of like a macro program, right? Some training that is planned out for weeks or months in advance, cycle on, cycle off type of thing. Have you come across athletes who were a little more experienced, and is it better to have an athlete that has a little bit of knowledge of it than not, or would you rather work with a blank slate?
I'd rather work with an athlete that has knowledge of it. And we had a few Europeans on our team, and I've had, American or United States athletes the same way, but the Europeans tend to come with a a plan, like a program they've been on. You can tell they've been on a plan that just wasn't a 2-week workout plan. It was a actual program, like you said, over time. And and some of them have pretty good levels of strength already as a freshman. And that was my case this past year with this player who transferred to Arizona. His name is Pella Larson. Just a freaking stud of an athlete. You know, 6'5", 215 guard, you know, so really good player and had a lot of qualities. So we just tried to find the weakest link in some ways that would benefit his performance.
Well, and there's a couple things that I want to touch at. Working out's doing stuff that you like to do. Training is the stuff that you need to do. I mean, so like, you know, if you're going to ask an 18-year-old male, all right, we're going to go work out. All right, we're going to hit some bench and we're going to do some buys and tries. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna do the things that make us look good. Training is actually having a thought process of like, what do I need to do in order to perform at the highest level possible? The other thing is like viewing this as kind of like medicine and giving them the appropriate dosage. I'm not going to say minimum effective dosage because everybody will lose their mind when I say that, but at some point there is some diminishing return on how much does a basketball player need to squat? How much does a basketball player need to bench? I mean, once again, we all know the story about Kevin Durant going to the basketball combine and not being able to do 185 once. Okay. Does that mean he's not going to be the first round, be the number one pick in the draft? No, he's 7 feet tall. He's got a handle and he can shoot the lights out. So, I mean, does he need to bench 185? Maybe. I mean, maybe not. I mean, but you know, I think a lot of people, unfortunately, in our profession, take a lot of credit for a lot of people's successes.
I think wherever you're at, though, what you guys do will enhance an athlete no matter what, in some capacity. Even if it's just like you said, Coach, making them more resilient so they don't get injured. I mean, that's a huge component. You know, you talk about an NBA player. You know, they get hurt real bad. They're not making as much money anymore. Hopefully they can fall back on that education. But what you guys do is important. It really, I get what you're saying that some guys think that, you know, they're everything, but at the same time, you can't discount what you guys do.
Oh no, I definitely wasn't underplaying what we do and the importance of it. I'm just saying for every Kevin Durant out there, there's 20 kids that aren't Kevin Durant. I mean, you're not just working with Kevin Durant and the LeBron Jameses of the world. And even if you are just working with them, they're going to be successful with or without you. I mean, or maybe sometimes in spite of you. You know, so I think that's where a lot of people in the profession need to be careful on, you know, how bravado they are with how successful their programs are or how successful their athletes are or are not. So I'm not saying that what we do isn't important. I'm just saying be careful about how much you echo on the reason that this person is where they're at. Okay. Once again, and I saw the quote the other day. I think it was Al Vermeil. No strength coach has made an athlete. Their mom and dad did. So, you know, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna use that. You know, I mean, yes, we've helped them. Hopefully, we've educated them. We've given them some knowledge on how to better take care of their body and better equip them for what they're going to do when they leave our guidance. I mean, I think that's really our ultimate job, is to make sure that they're good husbands, good mothers, good fathers, good moms, dads, productive members of society, and yes, be very successful at their given us athletic endeavors. But at the same time, I mean, if you're a bad person after you leave my program after 4 years, I didn't do my job.
I think it's an interesting perspective. You said, Coach, that, you know, you would like an athlete. It's easier to work with an athlete that kind of comes with some experience in the strength and conditioning field. Because the way I'm looking at it for my own children is that if they're going to be athletes, if they're going to go on to higher levels, I want them to have that knowledge, because to me, it's almost the same thing as having skills and understanding of a game to a coach, like a basketball coach. Them understanding strength and conditioning in their own bodies is the same coming to you guys when they come into your world. That it's, you know, that understanding of their body, that understanding of concepts is going to help you as a coach make them better.
Yes, I mean, I wish, you know, I trained my daughters, you know, for their sports, swimming and basketball, and one of them's 15, and she rather work out herself now than have me train her. But
But she has
one
all
of
the
the things,
building blocks, though.
yeah, she does. And one of the things and I don't think she would have listened, but the end of the day, it's her fitness and her taking care of her body is a lifetime thing. And you know, and it's going to help her in basketball, but it's not just for basketball. If I could have, I hope it sticks, you know what I'm saying? If I could have, like, if that would have been my message is always, hey, let's get in the weight room, get you a little stronger. It'll help you be quicker, it'll help you get, you know, shoot further out. I was always trying to tie it to basketball. And you guys are making me think. I think lately I should say stuff like, you know, this is something you're going to want to do for a lifetime, just learning about your body, taking care of it, doing it properly. So that's what's popping in my head right now.
Yeah. From my own experience, I do it every day to get rid of the pain from sports.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's hard, but you got that routine. It really is. It really changes your life.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just keeps me mentally healthy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The byproduct of it is I don't look like I'm 50 anymore. But you know, the good part is that, you know, I'm a little nicer to my family. I'm a little better. I'm hopefully a little better of a husband. I'm a little better of a father, and hopefully I'm a better person on a day-to-day for the people that I come in contact with. You know, hopefully I can make somebody else's day a better day by being involved in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
No
sorry
doubt.
to get all kumbaya on you.
No. It's good. I mean, I think that's one of the things strength coaches have to do is when they go through things like I'm going through with the, you know, losing your job, and you've experienced that too, Mark. Is it you really want a foundation of your purpose and why, and it's not easy to come up with. And you know, you know, Chris, you mentioned some of the martial arts and the discipline and yoga that comes with these things that will help you explore yourself. You know, yoga is movement, meditation, and movement is the way is one aspect of it, and it's breath control, and these it's a way to kind of know yourself.
Yeah.
And these things are going to be important. So if there's any one message that I would send is to continue to find out who you are. And I'm still doing it at you know, at 56. So
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
what's
I don't think it
you know,
ends.
And I think,
So are you using that with your athletes? Because I saw, I think your website is specificstrength.com, right, for the symposium?
it is, and that's just a whole, yeah, but go ahead.
Well, I see one of the pictures here. You guys are in, I think that's the, I'm going to butcher this. It's some kind of bird pose. You know, it's a, huh?
Oh
Pigeon?
yeah, the pigeon.
Pigeon, yeah, the
Mike
pigeon.
Boyle.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you guys are teaching this at the symposiums, and you're using yoga with your basketball athletes?
I think I've always tried to, okay, do we use yoga with the basketball athletes? I have with the objective of mobility and flexibility, but the main objective is this introspection.
Yeah.
Now, you know, yoga poses are great, and a lot of strength and conditioning profession has adapted those to just mobility movements. So that's what you're seeing there in that certain type of yoga pose being done.
So you're missing the connection then, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I used them for many years, poses like that, and never thought of any breathing or anything like that. I was just more, okay, we're doing this, you know.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew the name of some of them, but airplanes, um, are some of the poses. But there's one, where you're, uh, it definitely down dogs and up dogs, and yeah, yeah, stuff like that, stretching out your backside, right? So those types of things we stole from yoga.
When I was at Fairfield, we would every Friday we would do yoga in the summer. And it was funny because when I went into it, I was like, I'm going to have to fight the guys team on this. And the girls team's going to be all for it. And it was the complete opposite. The guys team was like, thank God we don't have to listen to you today. We can come in here and get our namaste on. And it was funny because the biggest guy on the team, 6'9", 250 pounds, our power forward center, he would always fall asleep during chaturanga or corpse pose. And I know chaturanga is not right, but corpse pose at the end. And everybody was afraid to wake him up because I didn't know if they were gonna swing on him. But then I've had other athletic teams. I'm like, hey, we're gonna do this. It's gonna help you recover. It's gonna help you feel better. We're gonna be able to get you through full ranges of motion. Everything that we've done all week has been hard. Kind of just getting back into that soft technique, get you into a parasympathetic state, get you out of this fight or flight mode, which everybody's been in for the last year and a couple months because of COVID. And I think Charles and I mean, I always knew breathing was important. I mean, you can go a month without food, you can go a week without water, you can go about 3 minutes without breathing. So tell me which one's the most important. It's breathing. So, but also most people do it incorrectly. They don't get into their diaphragmatic breath. They don't breathe in through their nose, out through their mouth. And they don't understand all of that and how it does actually help you, especially if you're in a fight or flight situation. There's 5 seconds left on the clock. You just got fouled. Your team's down by 1. I mean, if you go to that free throw line and aren't in a routine of like relaxing, taking however many dribbles you do, and then shooting, more than likely that's clanking off the iron. So
And I think,
that's how I tied everything together.
Like you said, Coach, the connection you're making with it is incredibly important. Just for an athlete to have that ability to have done yoga enough and make that connection with them, to know when they wake up in the morning, if they're a little misaligned, how to get themselves back into that alignment. That takes a lot of just time under tension doing it to get that understanding, that biofeedback. But if they do, they're going to perform better. If that athlete wakes up and he knows he's misaligned and he aligns himself, all of his leverages are going to work better during practice or a game. And there's going to be less risk of injury. So I think that's incredibly important what you said, that the athletes are making the connection and they're not just, it's just not a movement for mobility.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's certainly and it's one of those life skills. So we would focus on some type of teaching of breath control, and what methods we use depended on the year, and this year with COVID, that was a challenge. But so we didn't do yoga, but there's times that I've taught yoga, and I'm not really a yoga instructor, but we just did like 10 minutes of a few poses, but it was the breath controls and stuff like that, and then that we were seeking. So yes.
All right, here's my last question for you, Charles. What would the 56-year-old Charles tell the 20-year-old Charles when he was at William and Mary wanting to become a strength and conditioning coach? What advice would you give him, and what advice would you give anybody coming up in the profession right now?
Well, I think one of the things, I did have passion, and I did really love it, and I loved sharing it with others because I knew the impact it would have on them. So there was this huge desire to help. And so that's always, and also just performance, right? Just there's this quest of how to maximize abilities athletically, which is something I tried to do. So continue, continue with the passion, and make sure you have it, right? You're not doing this just to, and it's a serving profession, right? So I think the thing that I would give my advice would be to enjoy the time in the trenches and just and soak them all in, and as you learn, and the biggest thing is watch leaders in the field that you're in, because it's like you said earlier, or maybe it was a side conversation, Mark, but you mentioned about this young coach that just has 30 athletes for the first time, and they know the science and they know how to teach squats and do a lot of things really well. But now, how do you manage a room full of 30 athletes? How do you have what's your leadership ability of guiding this group through this workout? And that's something you're going to learn from your mentors, and you watch, and they'll go into that teaching you well, but you watch and you say, this that didn't really look good or didn't really go well, and why, and then look why is this coach doing it differently and these athletes are responding differently? So to me, it's this huge piece of how do you take all your knowledge and expertise and skill, and how do you relate, how do you apply it, how do you get them, the players and athletes, to do it to the best of their ability, right? To is so those are the things that come to mind. I wish I'd um, maybe observed more. One thing I'm kind of ranting a little bit. One thing I do now that really helped me was this, I learned it from the military, is the process of debriefing. And whenever I had two, even a athletic trainer helping me with a workout, or another intern or assistant strength coach, is we tried to get together after the workout. And the biggest thing we'd ask ourselves is if we had to do it again, what will we do differently? And then also point out the things that we thought went really well, so you can replicate the things you do well, and do things a little differently. And the other thing I'll throw out is innovation is just making something a little bit better. Don't try to be a strength coach that comes up with the latest greatest thing that ever happened to the industry, right? And if you do, awesome, right? If but if you just make something a little bit better, you have to appreciate that's you being innovative as well, you and your team of performance team. So respect that.
I think one of the things that you really touched on, I mean, you need to know your athletes before you coach them. I mean, if you don't know the athlete's name, but you're going to try and correct them on whatever exercise they're doing, it's not going to go well. I mean, you need to have, I mean, we started off camera and talking about how important it is for connections, and that not only the connections that you have with the people that you're working with, but also for those individuals that you're trying to help, and for a lot of young coaches, that's, you might only be a couple years older than the seniors that are in your room. So, I mean, if first and foremost, if you aren't genuine, athletes have a good bullshit meter. So if you're coming in spewing some bullshit, they're going to call you out on it in front of everybody. So understand, be who you are, be genuine, continue to learn. I mean, and you said that, I mean, and for the people that don't understand that means not only being a savage technically, being able to do the foundation of our job on how to coach an athlete through a training session, but also being very good. I'm not going to say soft skills, because I think Jesse will kill me. I'm going to say those skills that we need, those interpersonal skills that you need to have, and then those skills and that tact that you need to have to be able to reach the individual. I mean, I always ask the kids how they're doing in school, how's everything going at home. I mean, I tried to make those personal connections. I mean, all the athletes knew when I was expecting a baby. You know, if they were coming in to work with me that day, they always knew what was going on with me. But you know, I didn't hide things.
Yeah.
What you saw is what you got. I mean, you know, so if I was having a bad day, everybody knew I was having a bad day. They might not know why, but coach is having a bad day. So let's leave coach. Let's not piss him off. So, you know, whether that's right or wrong.
Thank you for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. It's been a lot of great information for our listeners out there. Where can people find you or get in touch with you?
Well, I think I wasn't prepared for this. I'm not very good with social media. I have some people helping me there. We do have a social media account for the High Performance Basketball Symposium on Instagram, and then at Twitter as well. And I do not know the handles.
Well, I think if they probably look up High Performance Basketball Symposium, I think they come across it. And I think the website is specificstrength.com.
Yeah, and that website can be a little misleading because that's kind of was a registration website, and that's pretty much all its purpose was. In the last 2 years, we've not used it because of we've gone through Zoom format. So if I think Play Academy is the way to kind of get access to the latest High Performance Basketball Symposium. And contact Mike Bewley at Play Academy if you're having troubles with trying to navigate that website, which is a really cool platform that we're excited to be associated with. Because after we meet the live event, we've always tried to figure a way to kind of continue the conversations throughout the year. So we're hoping the Play Academy platform provides that. It's just been an incredible honor for you guys to, or at least for me, but for me to be sitting here with you guys and being a part of this podcast. I love what you're doing, Mark. I was thinking on some of the things you were saying, you ought to have like a book of Proverbs for strength and conditioning, meet the athlete where they're at. The other one was about training program. I forget how you said it. But that could be like a little, 10 Proverbs of strength and conditioning. You ought to come up with that.
I'm coming your way.
I'm as good a thief as anybody in this profession. So, I mean, I think the one was, workouts doing what you want, training's doing what you need to do.
That's it.
So
there you go.
It's that simple.
Enough said.
Charles, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule and being a part of this. And I also can't thank you enough for your friendship and your continued support and, being there when I needed somebody to talk with, because when I got let go at Fairfield, that's the first time I'd ever been fired. So, and for those in this profession that don't understand that, I mean, because you put so much time and effort into your job and your career, when that's taken away from you, it's a real hard thing to deal with because you connect to what you do as to who you are. Mm-hmm. And the one thing I will tell you, Charles, you are so much more than a title. You are an incredible individual. Probably, I would assume a loving husband and father. And for myself, you've been a great friend and somebody that I have leaned on very heavily, whether you know it or not. So thank you very much.
Oh man, I'm humbled. Thank you, Mark. And that may be a podcast all itself, how to deal with losing your job and what's the process there. Cause that's you said it so much. It's the mental side of it's kind of like an injury sometimes in sports is, that athlete struggles so much because it's taken away from them. Right. And so there's a psychological side of the injuries. There's a psychological side of losing your job in any profession and especially ours,
Yep.
So thank you guys. Chris, it's been awesome.
Thank you, man. And listen, you can come on anytime. You want to come on and talk about that? We'll do another podcast because
it might be a good one. We could probably, might be a good one. There's some things I'm trying to do differently this go around. And I'm sure there's things I'll learn this go around. Not that I wanted the knowledge.
Best of luck.
That also one might be with some adult beverages.
We're the
The
Athlete
truth comes
Hackers
out.
Podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We've got a YouTube channel, Facebook. Look up Athlete Hackers. My name is Chris Schrade. Thanks for tuning in today.
My name is Mark Spellman. As always, appreciate you guys for listening. All my best. God bless. Take care. Peace.
Peace.